Testing, testing.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Dave Dundee. I'm Director of Education. I'm so glad you've come to another edition of our Lunch and Learn. And I wanted to just alert you about some exciting things that are coming up here at the museum. On this Saturday, we have totally awesome Halloween science, and you can come in costume if you want. And this room will be transformed into a Halloween experience. The subtitle of our program is From Spider Webs to James Webb, and the James Webb Space Telescope gets launched in December, and we're going to be celebrating that. And so we have various activities making spider webs and spiders, and it turns out that jumping spiders, their vision encompasses a wide portion of the spectrum, and we're relating that to gathering of light, which is our entree to talk about telescopes, of course. And so we'll have some activities of making various spider crafts and making your own James Webb telescope. We're giving away Halloween cookies and milk and cookies, by the way. And also, we have 2 opportunities in our big theater for a virtual guest from NASA, and will be one of the space rocket engineers. Will be talking and interacting with our audiences at both at 12 and at 2 that Saturday. So if you want to actually talk to a rocket scientist who's building part of this project, the Space Webb Telescope, that opportunity is happening on Saturday. And yes, there is more, folks, because next month we've scheduled a lunar eclipse. It's not quite total. It's on the morning of the 19th of November, and really, really early a.m. It starts around 2 a.m. And we'll be here at the museum. Runs till a little after 5:30 a.m. that morning. It's not quite total, but it's really, really close to total. So in addition to telescopes outside, we'll be broadcasting the image into the big theater here at Tellus, and it should be a fun morning of looking at eclipses. And so I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. And by the way, the Lunch and Learn next month, which will be on the 17th, is astronomer David Dundee. Oh, that's me. And I'll be talking about the lunar eclipse coming up in just a couple of days after that. So if you want details about the eclipse, or if you just don't feel like getting up at 2 in the morning and want to hear about the eclipse anyway, come to the Lunch and Learn then. Well, this afternoon we have a dear friend and my boss, Jose Santamaria. He is our executive director here at Tellus. He is an enthusiastic rock hound. He loves to go looking for fossils and rocks. He also is an enthusiastic gourmet of cooking, and also a gourmet wine connoisseur, and many other skills. His background actually in graphic art. He's quite a skilled artist on his own. So he has many, many skills. So we're lucky to have him here at Tellus leading this museum. So without any further ado, well, I guess I'm giving the... Where'd he go? Where is he? Oh, he's hiding in the corner. I thought you had left the room.
It is Halloween. I like to be stealthy.
Okay. And here's Jose.
Thank you so much, David. and thank you for having me up here to talk about one of my favorite collecting places. Who has been to Grays Mountain? All right, okay, great. So I've been there, I lost count, maybe 20, 25, maybe 30 times, sometimes 2 or 3 times a year. It's just an exciting place. I have not been the most successful collector there, but it's still real fun to be there. This is a photograph I took just this morning. This is the new case. We have upgraded the case. My talented curatorial staff. The Grays Mountain case. This is 12 feet wide, has about, 50, 75 minerals. And just give you a quick excursion on there we go, a little video displaying the unique specimens that we have there. It's a place that's been collected for, 160 years. And who was there just early this month? You can go there now and collect. Pretty amazing. This photograph, this panorama, it's stitched together. I took this about maybe 20, 25 years ago, back when we were using film camera. So I had to just tape photos together, get it scanned. But I used this photo, and it's actually on the case as well, because it's getting overgrown. So you stand where I stood there now. Where I stood there then, you stand there now, you got trees blocking your way. So what is the big deal? What is the big deal about Grays Mountain? Well, it's Georgia's premier mineral locality. It's probably the most, among international mineral collectors, probably the most famous. It has world-class specimens, an exciting mineral history. Like I said, more than 160 years collecting. You can go there, collect now. And it's a crazy end to this talk, in addition to the Grays Mountain story. I was one of the authors of a book published about 15 years ago, American Mineral Treasures. It was selected as one of the 50 top mineral localities in this country. Georgia got 2, by the way. The Jackson Crossroads Amethyst location was another one. Here I am.
All right, here we are at Grays Mountain. Grays Mountain is Georgia's most famous mineral locality, known around the world. This place has been collected for more than 160 years for rutile, lazulite, pyrophyllite, and about 50 other minerals. So we're here to see what we can find. And cut.
And so, having said that, I didn't find anything overly exciting. I just love to collect there anyway. So let's talk about the minerals at Grays. I love this description. This was written in 1912, more than 100 years ago, by geologist Thomas Watson. This occurrence of an interesting association of rather uncommon minerals. So let's look at those. First and foremost, Grays Mountain is known for world-class rutile. This is a titanium dioxide, and more important as a mineral specimen than an ore of titanium. It is known, Grays Mountain rutile is known because of just fantastic crystals, finely chiseled. It looks black, doesn't it? It's actually red. It's actually a very, very, very deep red. If you take a thin slice of rutile, it's going to be like a garnet red. Lazulite, this aluminum phosphate that forms what are called dipyramids. You get 2 pyramids glued together at the bottom. It forms these fantastic blue crystals. Pyrophyllite is an aluminum silicate that does have economic uses, but in this case, it has these starburst patterns, really, really fun stuff. And it is known for these iridescent colors that's laid over these different minerals. There's a term called turgite. It's really not a real mineral name, but is used because it's a combination of different iron oxides. But you get this coating, this beautiful coating of what could be like some kind of aluminum phosphate iridescent. Here's some weird stuff. This is a mineral kyanite that's altering to a different mineral, in this case pyrophyllite, but it's got this beautiful blue color. And by the way, just about all these minerals that I'm showing you are in the case. One of my favorites, not very big, maybe about 4 inches across, with this quartz crystal coated by this hematite, by this iron oxide coating, and then once again displaying the iridescence. So there's been about 37 minerals so far identified. I suspect there's going to be a lot more. Don't let those formulas and all these terms boggle your mind, but this is just a list of so far according to MinDat. Some you recognize pyrite, you recognize hematite, you recognize gold, of course. Some of these minerals you never even knew existed, but that's the list. And then another one of my favorite specimens that kind of shows the whole landscape of Gray's Mountain mineralogy. So you see the rutiles right here. Let me do this instead. The rutile right here, quartz crystal with the iridescent coating, the kyanite alternate to pyrophyllite, and I think there's a few other quartz crystals here, all in one rock, and that's also on exhibit. So where is Gray's Mountain? It's in East Georgia, just west of Augusta, southeast of Athens, kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it is between the town of Washington on the west and then Lincolnton on the east. It's actually in Lincoln County, but most of us who go there go through Washington to get there. So let's talk a little bit about this geology, because Gray's Mountain, as far as Georgia is concerned, it's a unique locality. Nowhere else in Georgia do you find this combination of minerals, but it does occur in other places in the southeast. Here's a quick primer on Georgia geology for those not quite as familiar. So we have the coastal plains are all sediments. We got northwest Georgia, where we are right now, valley and ridge, all sediments. So this right here is what's called the crystalline part of Georgia, the Blue Ridge and Piedmont. A lot of metamorphics, rocks just crushed together, altered by tectonic forces. And I'm going to show you a different map. This is what's called the Carolina Slate Belt. It's first of all an area that's been mined for gold, but you see all these little dots, yellow dots that I put on there. These are occurrences are kind of similar, not identical, but similar to Gray's Mountain in mineralogy, and they've had different mineral histories and mining histories. Let's see, right around. So here's Gray's right here. It's like the tail end. Southeast end of the slate belt. Some of these areas have been mined for gold, mined for pyrophyllite and kyanite. So how did that form? What happened? Well, got to go back a couple of 100 million years when you have continents about to collide, and you have volcanic islands right off the coast of what is going to be Georgia. So Gray's Mountain has a volcanic origin. It was not a volcano, but the origin was in volcanism. So I'm going to show you some diagrams. David talked about my artistic talent. Well, this is some graphics that I cranked out. Typical of a volcanic island. You have magma, lava coming up, spewing out a lot of volcanic ash. So Gray's Mountain is not the volcano. Gray's Mountain formed out of this ash layer here of what's a volcanic rock called tuff, which is just a compressed high silica volcanic ash. In Gray's Mountain, and it could have happened in other spots, and these are spots. This is not a whole area, but a spot like Gray's Mountain, you have hydrothermal solutions. This is like superheated water heated by the magma, and it's heating seawater. So it's not just a good old plain creek water. Seawater is more corrosive. So it brought up a lot of different elements. You see from left to right, you see sulfur, silicon, titanium, aluminum, gold, phosphorus, copper, and iron. And at the same time, it took away, it leached out a lot of elements that form our common minerals. So it took away a lot of the sodium, potassium, calcium, manganese. So these are the kind of minerals, minerals that form most rocks here in Georgia. You don't find any of those in Gray's Mountain. So that happened, and then, of course, as the continents kept approaching, you have this continental collision that eventually raised this latest version of the Appalachian, and what that caused is that all this rock got compressed and got heated and got metamorphosed. So if you do a cross-section of this Piedmont and Blue Ridge of Georgia, you're going to see a lot of these slanted layers of different kinds of rocks. Now, talk a little bit about mountains. You know, how do mountains form? Okay, mountains either are raised, like a volcano is a mountain, it goes up, or through tectonic forces, like the Rockies, you know, raising the mountains, or a mountain can be the last man standing. So in this case, it's not like you had this volcano that still remains. I mean, where Graves Mountain is now, it could have been miles under the ground. What happened with Graves is that the ground around it weathered away. And that's because with Graves, you have this very hard rock that has formed. This is a kyanite quartzite. So I'm going to show you a picture of an area that no longer exists. This is one of the summits of Graves Mountain circa, what does it say? I don't even have, 1939. And these are the boulders of quartzite that still remain on top of the mountain. Let me tell you guys, this is very hard rock. How hard is it? Here's a boulder that I tried to crack. And here's my solid steel chisel. It used to be straight. As far as I know, that rock's still there, that crack is still there, and the chisel probably still there because I couldn't get it out. So, subsequently, after all that, more stuff happened. One of the minerals you find throughout Graves Mountain is pyrite. Now, what do we know about pyrite? Yeah, fool's gold, but pyrite, once it reaches the surface, once it reacts with water, it's actually very unstable. It actually breaks down into iron oxides, and the sulfur is leached out combined with water to form sulfuric acid. So one of the most accepted theories is that this acid started percolating down through the mountain, altering minerals. And so you have what are called primary minerals, and then minerals resulting from the change of other minerals. So you have this water percolating down. Then I show here that little translucent red area, this altered zone where you have a lot of changes. And so once again, don't be scared. I'm going to show you more chemical formulas. But in this case, on one side are what we think are the original minerals at Graves before this alteration. And to the right, all the minerals are formed afterwards through this reaction of acid and the existing minerals. All right, and we'll get back to those. I'll show you plenty of mineral pictures. But first, I want to kind of go back to the local history of Graves Mountain, because before it was a famous mineral locality, it was a place for locals to go and have picnics. There's plenty of records going back to the 1800s, having picnics there. I love this one. This is from the diary of a Mr. Belknap Smith. Went to a mountain party at Little Mountain. It was also called, it had different names. Went to a little party at Little Mountain. Lots of ladies there. Had a fine time. Here's some of the ladies that he may have met. There was also, back then, especially in the 1800s, especially with the general public, very little knowledge about geology. So the locals will see rocks like these right here. Now this is like a hematite covered with the iridescence, but people thought this was a volcanic rock. And that once again, you're in a flat area with one mountain. Wow, it must be a volcano. Well, around maybe 1902, when was it? 1902. Worldwide news, Mount Pelée in the island of Martinique erupted. It blew up. It killed, where are my notes? Killed 29,000 people. That was shocking news. And that news found its way to Lincolnton, to Washington, and then there was a report in the paper one evening. There was some kids camping out on top of Graves Mountain. They lit a campfire. The campfire went out of control. All of a sudden, people were seeing the top of Graves Mountain on fire. It created a little bit of a local panic. People thought Graves Mountain was erupting. But this is where the science, we're going to get back to science now, the mineral history and how Grays Mountain became collected. It starts with Professor Charles Shepard. He was professor of chemistry and mineralogy at the Amherst College and Charleston College. And he was visiting here. He was actually visiting Bartow County, the town of Allatoona that now sits underneath Lake Allatoona. And a friend of him handed him some crystals, which he eventually recognized as Lazulite. And he asked him, where'd you get these? Well, this friend of mine gave them to me. Who's that friend? This is Dr. Matthew Stevenson. So Stevenson, first of all, I have no idea what kind of doctor he was. We know Doc Holliday was a dentist, right? Have no idea about Stevenson. But he was a prospector during the Georgia Gold Rush. He eventually became the chief assayer at the Dahlonega Mint around the time when the Georgia gold was playing out and the miners heard about gold in California. So the miners were getting restless. They were wanting to leave. And as a last-ditch effort to keep those miners here, Stevenson got on top of the Dahlonega, the second balcony on the second story of the Dahlonega courthouse, which is still in existence, is the Dahlonega Gold Museum. And he pointed to one of the ridges and said, "Look here, boys. There's so much gold here. There's millions in it." Well, the miners left anyway, but they left saying there's millions in it. There's millions in it. Well, a young writer named Mark Twain heard this, and there's millions in it didn't sound too exciting, so he changed that into there's gold in them dar hills, and that's how it started. But nevertheless, we think that after, this was 1949, so 1959 is when Shepard and Stevenson connected. We think that Stevenson was there prospecting for gold at Grace Mountain, and guess what? There is gold at Grace Mountain. Not enough for it to be economic, but he may have been searching for that when he ran into these other minerals. Shepard and Stevenson, they got into business. This was the early era of mineral collecting, where collectors and scientists pool their resources and to distribute minerals. So I did a little bit of survey through one of our listservs, contacting curators around the world, asking them, your Grays Mountain specimens, when did you get the first specimens? Now remember, we started in 1959, right? 1961, the Natural History Museum in Vienna, Austria, Rutile purchased from Shepard. 61 again, Museum of Natural History in Paris, Mineral Museum in Paris. 66, Lazulite acquired at the Carnegie Museum, New Mexico Geology Museum, Rutiles in 1870, you see at 1877, 1878. So in less than 20 years, there were Grays Mountain minerals distributed throughout the world. There's minerals in Australia, minerals in Russia. And this is before telephones, before computers, before the internet, and before FedEx. So it's amazing how quickly these minerals got distributed. The next player was George Kuntz. Kuntz was the gem expert at Tiffany's, and he's the one who popularized minerals like tourmaline as a gemstone. The gem variety of spodumene, kunzite, is named after him. Well, not only was he into the gem, he was also wanting to cater to the rich mineral collectors. So he and a partner actually purchased the top of Grays Mountain. And there was reports that they were digging out like 5-pound crystals of rutile to distribute. But that enterprise didn't last long. He was quoted in the paper one time that, wow, if more extensive work was done, many remarkable specimens would be found. And by the way, those of you who dug in this hard Grays Mountain matrix, it's really hard rock. I mean, it's really hard to get some of these minerals. So I can just imagine these guys with pick and shovel trying to extract specimens, sometimes not very successful. Fast forward to 1935, the Georgia Mineral Society was formed, and the first field trip was to Grays Mountain, and that's back when you had just tar roads and gravel roads. And they found there was a report on the first field trip that was actually, by then, already an historical marker. Now, that's not the marker. I try to recreate it because it's missing, but I actually got the wording, and you'll see some misspellings there, but there was actually a marker at Grays Mountain. Well, one of the founding members of the Georgia Mineral Society was Gil Withers. So Withers, first of all, was a mentor to one of my friends, Bob Cook, but he was a successful real estate agent who had an agency, but he got the rockhound bug to the point that he quit the agency, he sold it, and he opened a rock shop in downtown Atlanta in the 1930s. And don't forget, we still have the Depression. And so he actually published an ad in the fairly new magazine, Rocks and Minerals, that still exists. And check this out. Let's see, Rutile, crystals, museum pieces from 10 to 25 bucks. My curator Ryan is back there. How would you like that opportunity? Lazulite, Pyrophyllite. So he was selling Grays Mountain minerals because he, by that time, Kuntz was out, and Withers got the lease on Grays Mountain and getting some people to dig for him. In that same issue, the actual founder of Rocks and Minerals, Peter Zodak, visited and wrote about the locality. Now, by then, the reports from the Georgia Mineral Society, from Peter Zodak, was these minerals are hard to get. I mean, originally they were collected on the surface. That was done, so now you have to dig, and that's just a little harder. But he gave me one of my favorite quotes. If one could do a little digging and blasting, he would undoubtedly uncover some very fine rutiles, pyrophylites, and lazulites. And my friend, that's what happened. But mining started at Grays Mountain, but not for rutile, not for lazulite, not for mineral specimens, not for the collector market. It started for this lowly mineral called kyanite. Kyanite is an aluminum silicate. At the turn of the last century, it was just a curiosity. If you get a kyanite crystal, the hardness is different whether you go one way or another. So it was just a mineral curiosity. Had no economic value until the dawn of the motorized age, because things like spark plugs. Y'all remember spark plugs? Cars used to have at one time. The ceramic wrapping the top of the spark plugs. That's one of the applications of these high temperature ceramics. So all of a sudden, everybody was looking for aluminum silicate deposits, and Grays Mountain was identified as one, but there was never a successful effort to start until this man came along, Paul Bennett. So Bennett got his PhD just plotting out aluminum silicate deposits, especially kyanite, in the Appalachian Mountain. In fact, he went from the Appalachian, from New York down to Alabama, and then kept on going down to Brazil. He was doing that for Alcoa at that time. But then he decided to go into business for himself, and he actually purchased Grays Mountain. And I actually got to meet him. Picture on the right is in his studio years after he got out of the mining business. And of course, the idiot mineral collector here. Oh, Paul, did you buy Grays Mountain because it was such a famous place? He goes, no, I wanted to make money. He was there to dig kyanite. But at his house, he had a cabinet, and I looked at this piece right here. It's like, wow, this is an 8-ling. So rutile is known for its twinning. Sometimes you get 2 crystals twinned, but this is 8 crystals forming one specimen. And I wondered, wow, Paul, this is really cool. He goes, well, you can take it. So it's not part of our collection. It's on exhibit. So pictures of his crew, pictures of mining at Grays Mountain, and going back to the pit. So Grays Mountain was 2 main peaks and 1 smaller peak. The peaks are where the kyanite deposits were. So the peaks then are pits now. Show you in this map right here. The top map is a map from Peter Zodak. So this is one of the peaks right here. The other peak right here. Let me make sure I've got my bearings. Yeah, peak. And then right in between here is what was known as the saddle. So you can think 2 peaks and then the depression in between the saddle, like a horse saddle. Well, the saddle is now one of the highest points in Grays Mountain and one of the best places to look for rutile. The bottom picture is a hand drawing of the mine. So so Grays Mountain Kyanite was marketed for a lot of different things, but mostly for high temperature ceramics. At one time, they bid on tiles for the space shuttle, for example. And then they had a lot of byproducts. So I mentioned the pyrite. Well, when they were processing these minerals, there's a lot of pyrite left over. What do we do with it? Well, pyrite is an economic mineral. It is mined for acid to make a lot of different products, but it's also a colorant. And Grays Mountain pyrite was used at that time to color glass. So if you had a bud around that time, from the 1960s to the 1980s, you may have been holding some glass colored by Grays Mountain pyrite. And then the leftover minerals, a lot of sand, was used for sandblasting. So eventually, the competition forced the shutdown of Grays, like around 1985 or so, and mostly because of the iron oxides, the kyanite needed a lot of cleaning, whereas to the northern end of that map that I showed you of the Carolina Slate Belt, Willis Mountain in Virginia, very clean kyanite. And to this day, Willis Mountain is the world's largest producer of kyanite for industrial purposes. All right, so during the time of mining, collectors try to get in there. Obviously, all of a sudden, what couldn't be accessed, you had this big hole that you could have. Wow, how many rutiles, how many lazulites could you find there? But the mine owner said, no, nobody comes in here. I know of a couple of dealers. Leonard Himes is one of them. He told me a story that he went there, got run off, but somehow the miners found out where he was staying. So one evening, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, there's a miner at the door with a pickup truck full of rutile to sell to him. So the miners knew the value of the minerals, even though they couldn't do much about it. But so now, mining has ended at Grays Mountain, and then us rock guys were going like, well, how do we, how can we get in there? Word started passing around, a little buzz about, well, you know what? If you talk to the right guy, he can get you in there. And sure enough, by then I'd become very active in the Georgia Mineral Society. I was living in Atlanta at that time, and we got in there a few times. We thought it was a secret. All the mineral clubs knew about this, about the secret guy, and so now what? Let's go dig. Let's go dig at Grays Mountain. A little problem surfaced though. The guy that we were talking to get us access to Grays Mountain was not the caretaker, was not the land manager at Grays Mountain. So we went back to the drawing board, but eventually we found out who it was. And to this day, Junior Norman is the caretaker of Grays Mountain. He's the guy who that you can call tomorrow if you want to go there. But he also sets up these 2 digs a year where it's just open to the public. A number of mineral not collectors as much as dealers did really well during the past 20 years. The late Terry Ledford spent a week digging there, and that really started. He was a modest mineral dealer, but really raised his business to the next level. A lot of the pieces we have on exhibit come from a team led by this guy Chester Karwoski. So look at this guy. What do you think he did for a living? Rough-looking guy, huh? Professor, a psychology professor at the University of Georgia, but a tremendous collector. And then you get bozos like my friend Jeff and I there. But once in a while we have to document that we've been there. And so going back to Junior, twice a year he sets up in April and October what he calls the Grays Mountain Rock Swap and Dig, where he has dealers there. You can come in. There's no cost, but of course they appreciate donations just to be able to afford doing that. You'll see things that you don't normally see, for example, porta potties. And best of all, you get this. You get golf carts that will take you around because this is like 3 miles wide, a mile wide, 3 miles long. A lot of walking, especially if you load her up with rocks. Here are your gracious hosts, Melissa and Junior, and yes, you do get transportation. So let's look at rocks. Let's look at more rocks. More rutiles over here. These belong to Mike Galvin. Not very big specimens, but just beautiful. We had these on exhibit for a while. They've gone back to him. The big one on the left is one of ours on exhibit. A nice big chunk of 2 rutile crystals. The one on the right, I think, appeared in one of our articles. 2 more of Mike's pieces. But you can see this lustrous, these beautiful crystals of rutile that are unparalleled, that are unrivaled anywhere in the world, by the way. The Lazulite, the same thing. Once again, a piece on exhibit, maybe so big or so, just full of Lazulite crystals, beautiful blue. And one of my favorites, this one of Chester Karwowski's specimens, probably a little bit over an inch by pyramid of a crystal, just beautifully perched on the kyanite quartzite. There's Ilmenite, another titanium mineral. There's a Pyrophyllite I mentioned earlier, but this is another very neat specimen that we have because it's got some vugs with terminated Pyrophyllite crystals. Those are the balls you see right over here and throughout here. There's Barite, both in a macro and micro form. There's like a green mica, it's been called fuscite, but more accurately, it is a chromium muscovite, and just weird things like blue quartz. But going back to some of my favorite stuff, these iron oxides, they're just crazy. First of all, Grays Mountain has the biggest quartz crystals that occur in Georgia, a foot, maybe bigger. It's also produces the ugliest quartz crystal because this is like a milky solid, very crude. But I love it when they get coated by these iron oxides, by these like this almost like a flowing of a toroidal stalactitic iron oxides. And this, look at this piece. I mean, it's just a beautiful iridescent coating quartz crystals. And once again, I showed you this earlier, this kind of bubbly looking iron oxides. These are new to that exhibit. These are from my friend Jeff Deere that he looked into a dig, and he didn't invite me. And he found a bunch of really nice crystals. Even sulfur does crystallize, and you can collect specimens of that. And then once again, kyanite with pyrite and quartz. Collecting's a little tougher now because the easy stuff is gone. You have to work the rock, the hard rock, to get to the good stuff. Here's another situation that occurs in Grace Mountain, which is I mentioned the pyrite, I mentioned the sulfuric acid. Well, sulfuric acid leaching out and polluting the streams is still a problem. So this used to be one of the lower pits here. This is the low pit. This is the lower pit, but this is the lower part of the lower pit. And I've actually collected some really nice quartz crystals down here. Well, this was impounded to control the acid runoff. And in fact, the mine company brings in limestone to throw in that pond periodically to neutralize that acid. So what's the future of collecting a grays? Well, like I said, the big stuff is hard to find. And I think the future, personally, I think the future is going to be in micro minerals. And so here's some more minerals. Jarosite is another iron mineral. Caucoxanite, barite, phosphate minerals. And don't forget Lazulite being aluminum phosphate. The phosphorus can recombine into other mineral, woodhousite, phosphosiderite, and then crandallite and woodhousite. And then a couple of mine. I collected these a couple of years ago and put them under the microscope. These are quartz crystals with different forms of iron oxide, little balls over here of a hematite, and then a coating of red hematite on the crystals. These things are, I would say, about maybe 4 millimeters tall, very, very small. Excuse me, 0.4 millimeters, small stuff. Something else that I've noticed in the past 10 years is using Grez Mountain minerals for lapidary purposes. So you see cabochons of the Lazulite in the quartzite matrix. They're really pretty. It's been nicknamed denim lapis. This is a faceted rutile. It's very opaque, but you can occasionally catch these red flashes. And of course, you get this right here. This is a sphere about 8 inches in diameter on exhibit in that case. That came from this boulder about this big that another friend of mine, Jim Hagee, dug up, and then my other friend, Chester Karwowski, sent off to Asia to get turned into a sphere. So these are different possibilities of Grez Mountain rock. And then the final future prospect for Grez Mountain is just more research, because to this day, we're not too sure how this iridescent formed. The best I've heard is some type of a hydrous aluminum phosphate, but I mean, I think a lot more research to really uncover more about the history of Grez Mountain how Grez Mountain formed. So there's still a lot to do there. So some scenes from some of my collecting trips, some close-ups. People just, and by the way, some crazy people actually dig tunnels in there. I wouldn't do that, but I think that's been blocked off. Some scenes, more scenes of Grez Mountain. You can see once again the acid pond here to our at the distance. And what? Yes, Grez Mountain has also been used as a movie set. So when I first got there, my first, and this back maybe 1986, 87, my first thought was, man, this will be a great set for a science fiction movie. Well, guess what? Who has seen this movie? Oh, no, you guys got to, okay, thank you, and thank you, Ryan. Nobody else? All right, so synopsis, this is not a spoiler, right? Humans fighting aliens on Earth, all right? And somewhere halfway through the movie, I think about an hour, 5 minutes, the good guys, the humans, invade the lair of the aliens on Black Hawks, and they go over the ocean, over a beach, and all of a sudden they're over this scene, and that's Grez Mountain. That's Grez Mountain. And when I saw that movie, when I saw stills from it, when I saw it again, I was thinking, I collected there. So what I did was I just captured some stills out for you, and here they are. Here's the Black Hawk approaching Grez. What's this? That's the acid pond that I showed you. And this wall right here, that's the saddle that I described to you, where most of the best rutile has come out. Here's another one. Here's another one. What is it? These cones here, those are movie props. Those are movie props put on but most of the rock, most of the scenery there, except for the pink smoke, that's Grez Mountain. They didn't have to do anything to it to make it look crazy. And hereabout somewhere is where that boulder came from that was shaped into that sphere. And then, so they capture the alien queen, and so now, of course, the aliens are really mad, and you got to run away from aliens. So somewhere to the far left over here is where I collected this green muscovite. So when I was there last, a couple of things. First of all, this pile right over here is where I collected this barite. This is about probably 25 years ago, and this kyanite came from this pile right over here. I collected this back in December, back in April. So once again, did y'all need another excuse to go to Grez Mountain? Yeah, you can visit this movie set from this really crazy movie that was shot there. And unfortunately, during that time, Grace Mountain was off limits to collecting. So I hope they don't get, I hope not too many other movie companies get too excited about that. So anyway, I'll leave you with this. I'll leave you with the final panorama of one of my favorite scenes, Grace Mountain, and truly one of my favorite places to collect. And at that point, then I'll open it up to questions. I just pulled that up, all the thank yous. I'll probably have more thank yous to give, but a lot of people helped me with this talk. So, questions? Oh, yes. All right, so David has the walking microphone.
All right. So that was great, Jose. Actually, I'm going to start off with a couple of virtual questions came in from our
great.
virtual audience. And first question from Robert was, what types of mining was used to recover minerals from the mountain? Was it strip mining, in situ mining, placer mining?
Okay, so to recover the specimens, it's really just really pick and shovel. I mean, really just guys probably not going very deep. From what I understand, before actual mining took place, there were only pits maybe 2 or 3 feet deep. I mean, like I said, this is very, very hard rock. Now, once official mining commenced for the kyanite, yeah, they used heavy equipment. It's open pit mining. Strip mining is used for coal because they're actually just ripping out strips. Open pit, they're just digging down into the mountain to get to the ore.
All right. Questions from our live audience. Let me come back here, and since we're recording this, I want to make sure everyone hears you. Question.
Good morning. I noticed there was a gold nugget back in the case, and I was wondering if that was found on the outside surface of the mountain, or if that was found somewhere in a vein on the inside.
That was, and I'll try to go back to it real quickly. It's not very big. You saw it in the case, and this is a photograph that I took. This is from Travis Parris, a mineralogist that I truly respect. He's done some work at Grace Mountain. He has told me that gold is associated with the pyrite. And so it could have been a pyrite-rich area. But as far as a particular vein, I asked him that would gold be worth pursuing at Grace Mountain. I hope I'm not making y'all dizzy. There we go. It's what is it? I didn't put this. Yeah, 9 millimeter. So it's really this big. Economically, there's not enough gold there, because nowadays gold is mining huge bulks. Getting at 1 ounce per 9, 10 tons. You couldn't get it. You couldn't do it there. But Travis says if you want to make some money, you can probably mine Grace Mountain for the pyrite, because pyrite yielding sulfuric acid is used to make rayon. It's used to make a lot of industrial products.
So another question from our virtual audience. The minerals found on the mountain, what are they mostly used for? Is it industrial, or is it gem or jewelry quality?
Right, so 2 answers. Going back to the kyanite, the kyanite was mined for high temperature ceramics. So I mentioned spark plugs, for example, but used to line kilns. So when you're melting metal, when you're melting metal, you don't line a kiln with metal, right? You're gonna melt the kiln. So you use these bricks of high temperature ceramics to hold the heat in and to protect the exterior of the kiln. So those are some of the uses of what's called refractories. The specimens that are collected, they're really collected from mineral specimens. They're collected by collectors, and there's a lot of mineral collectors here who want to get some of the best specimens of Grace Mountain minerals. And like I showed you, then some are getting into lapidary and a few other things like that.
Other questions from our audience here? Oh, here's a question from Robert.
Jose, is the only 2 times you can visit the times that you stated, or can individual clubs visit there by contacting the caretaker?
Call. I got Junior Normer on my speed dial. I would say that if you two want to go collect tomorrow, he probably has to get a bigger group, so because it is his time. He has a business. I mean, he has believe it or not, he runs a junkyard and a towing business. But yeah, clubs can go there probably. What clubs are you a member of? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Cobb is setting up a date as we speak. I know Georgia Mineral has set a date already. It's not announced, so I can't divulge that. But I'm going on that trip. So yeah.
When are we going?
Georgia Mineral is going. I think it's December 4th. So yeah. But I mean, I can call and take a museum group out there. The April and the October dates are just convenient because you don't have to make plans. You can just show up whenever you want. It gets very crowded. I mean, I've been there when there's been probably 200 or 300 people there. Now, 200 and 300 people here is like 200 and 300 people here at the museum. I mean, people just spread out. But it is nicer, especially some of the better spots, to have less people.
Yeah. One more question from our virtual audience. The Mineral Gallery at the museum, were a large portion of those collected at Graves Mountain?
Mostly in that case. Mostly in the Graves Mountain case. We do have a few Graves Mountain minerals throughout other cases, but no, the Mineral Gallery and the specimens there have been collected from all over Georgia, all over the Southeast, and all over the world.
Okay. Other questions? Well, if not, thank you so much again, Jose.
Thank you very much. And if you've never been there, go there. It's just tremendous fun. You'll bring back some rocks, and bring them over. We'll help you identify them. All right. But thanks for attending. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Yeah.